So welcome everybody. My name is Jenny Hewling. I am a teaching and learning specialist for District 196. My focus has been around learning and technology, the implementation of our one-to-one iPads across the district. And I welcome you here to our 196 Online family session for today. We have members of our leadership team right now, our interim leadership team that we have. And I will have them just quickly introduce themselves and then we'll get started. So I am going to pass it over to Drew to get us started, and then he can pass to additional members of our team.
Hi, my name is Drew Storley. I'm an assistant principal at Rosemount High School in 196. And I'm going to pass this over to Stacy.
Hi, I'm Stacy Buchwald. I'm the assistant principal at Valley Middle School of STEM. Nice to see you all over Zoom, and I am going to pass this to Chad.
My name is Chad Rayburn. I'm principal at Highland Elementary in Apple Valley, and I'll pass it to Gretchen.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gretchen Carey, and I support middle schools alongside the rest of this team as part of our teaching and learning team.
So what we're going to be doing today is talk through details around the program. There's two purposes for our session today. The first one is to provide more in-depth information on really specific areas of 196 Online. And then also the second half is going to be around reflective questions to consider in determining if 196 Online is the best option for you and your family. So that'll be the second half of our session together. So we want to start by really emphasizing that 196 Online is part of District 196. This is a learning option for students and families that would like an online remote option. And so when we think about District 196, we are one district, infinite possibilities. So this is really adding on to those infinite possibilities. Things about 196 that are really important to us is that we're nationally recognized for providing those boundless opportunities in which students can learn and grow. So 196 Online is really another option for students to be able to continue to learn and grow. Our AAA philosophy is really important to us, to really have students have the opportunity for infinite possibilities. So you'll see that as we're talking through some of the details of 196 Online. And we really want to encourage students each day to pursue excellence in their learning journey. And so when we think about 196 Online, this is just another extension of that. So 196 Online is the option for the 21-22 school year in place of our current digital academy option that we have available. This is going to be a permanent online option available for students that would like to learn remotely, would like to learn online. So when we think of 196 Online, we really want it to be part of our mission. And so we've developed this mission of 196 Online. 196 Online is an equitable, personalized, and flexible virtual learning community which builds relationships, continues the District 196 AAA philosophy, and inspires the growth and development of all learners. And so, some key words in there is equitable, personalized, and flexible. So when we think of 196 Online, we really want it to be that personalized, flexible, and equitable learning experiences. But we also want it to be one where students can build relationships with classmates, build relationships with their teacher, and also support staff that are part of 196 Online. So when we think about some highlights of 196 Online, there's a couple things that we want to keep in mind. We want that 196 Online is committed to having high quality, rigorous, and a comprehensive fully online experience. So think about this as students are fully online, very similar to their digital academy model right now, with some changes and some updates. The curriculum that we're going to use is going to meet and exceed all the Minnesota state standards. All of this is part of the Minnesota Department of Education's online options that school districts can have. So we have certain criteria that we need to make sure that we adhere to, and one of them is to make sure that all of the courses meet or exceed the Minnesota state standards. You'll notice as I talk through the slides that we're combining digitally delivered coursework with also those hands-on tangible learning experiences. So for example, at the elementary level, we want to make sure that students have the opportunity to have hands-on experiences such as science materials, art materials. We also want them to be able to have access to books, be it library books or books that go along with content. So really having a system that allows for students to have access to those materials. All of the courses are going to be facilitated by District 196 licensed teachers. We're going to have dedicated support staff with students and families. So things like counselors, things like having cultural family advocates. We want to make sure that we have the same supports in 196 Online that you would see in a brick and mortar school. There's also opportunities for students to participate in co-curricular activities, including athletics and enrichments, and also exploratories. And this would be at their attendance area school. So there is still a thread of connection with their attendance area school, even when they're in 196 Online through those co-curriculars and those after-school activities. So we're going to talk about the learning structure in 196 Online. You're going to notice some similarities to what is currently in the Digital Academy model, but you're also going to see some enhancements and changes that we are making. So when we think about 196 Online, it's a remote learning environment, but the schedule is more flexible than in a brick and mortar school. And you'll notice how that's going to progress as I talk about elementary, middle school, and high school. Another thing you're going to notice is that we're going to have independent work, which we call asynchronous work at times, that's partnered with layers of live academic connection and support, meaning synchronous work. So you're going to see some independent layers and then also some layers of live synchronous support with teachers. The level of structure and that live synchronous support is going to gradually progress across elementary, middle, and high. So what you're going to see is a more structured schedule at the elementary. Then you're going to see more flexibility as we go into middle school, and then even more flexibility as we go into high school. So at the elementary level, we're going to be a remote learning option, but there's a daily schedule with a start time and an end time. At the elementary level, developmentally, it's really helpful for students to know the start of their day and the end of their day. So we're going to have that kind of structure. You're also going to see a common lunch and recess time for elementary. This means that as a family, you are able to have that dedicated time for lunch and recess and activity. And we really wanted to maintain that consistency for families. There's also going to be the opportunity, like we have for Digital Academy right now, for students to connect with their teacher during office hours each day. And when we think about at the elementary, the time that is live or synchronous for students on Zoom with their teacher may differ between primary and intermediate, and it may be up to 120 minutes a day. So thinking about that, just that kind of time frame, just to give some general parameters. So when we think about the live synchronous instruction and that time, and then independent work time, there's really for elementary a very similar structure to what you see in Digital Academy. So you're going to see a daily morning meeting to really start the day. It's a time for students and to connect with their classmates and also their teacher. And it really gets the learning ready for the day. This is a place where they build their classroom community, they learn from each other, they really get to know each other as people. Then there's also going to be a literacy workshop time and a math workshop. And so in here, there might be times where your child meets with their teacher in small groups. It might be a whole group lesson. It might be individual work time. And so thinking about that, it's a block of time, and how your student interacts with the teacher is really dependent on the unit that they're in, or how the teacher is noticing the learning needs of students and bringing those together. So how do we really incorporate that into a literacy block? and then also a math block. So math, very similar. It might be that the teacher starts with the whole class with a mini lesson and then has students work independently, but the teacher might also be pulling small math guided math groups and then being able to work with them on specific math concepts. The one thing that is different at elementary is that we are going to have specialist teachers, and this is art, music, Phy-Ed, that are going to be dedicated to 196 Online. And so they are going to have a synchronous time with students, just like they would have in a brick and mortar school, with also then some asynchronous opportunities for students to learn independently. This is different from our current digital academy model, where specialist teachers are giving asynchronous work, but there really isn't a synchronous opportunity at this time. At the middle school level, it's going to be a remote learning environment, just like it is now, but it's going to have a more flexible schedule than they currently have, plus a more flexible schedule than is currently, or than will be in the elementary level. You're going to see independent work, that asynchronous work that's partnered with layers of live synchronous support and collaboration. So I'm going to talk through what that live synchronous support is going to look like, knowing that there is that flexibility for them to go into their different classes that they have for middle school and work on the learning tasks for those specific classes at any time. That's their flexible time. Each day, we're going to have a daily advisory at the middle school level. This will be a time for middle school students to check in with their advisory teacher and fellow classmates. It's a place where they can really set the stage for their day, similar to a morning meeting, but more at a middle school developmental level, and that they can connect as a community, really get a good start for the day, kind of think out and plan their day of what they're doing flexibly, and be able to check in around their progress. We're also going to have routine individual advisor meetings. This is where the student will meet with their advisor one-on-one. That's a time for the teacher to really talk through with the student the progress that they're making, what are some things that they need additional support on, how can we as a system really help the student with anything that might need additional support, and also to provide feedback to the student. So this is really that one-on-one time, and that is going to happen at least twice a month. Also at the middle school, we are going to have academic guided groups, and this is really going to be based on the students that are in 196 Online, and how can we really utilize groups of students together to really learn from each other, and then also get additional support from the teacher. So this might be a whole group lesson depending on where the course content for that specific class is in. It might be small groups working together on a specific project or on a specific unit, or it could sometimes be individually based on the needs of students. So how do we really utilize our flexible time in a way that really helps students where they're at and supports students where they're at? There will also be daily office hours. So if students ever have a question, they can contact their teacher during those office hours, and those will be happening on a daily basis. At the high school level, again, it's a remote learning environment. It's going to have a more flexible schedule than the middle school. So this is really an opportunity for students to work on their coursework at their own pace and time. It's going to really be based on an asynchronous model of that independent work with layers of live synchronous support and collaboration. So how that looks, it's a little bit more flexible, as I said, than middle school, where there will be a weekly advisory. Each week, students will meet with their advisory teacher and classmates, very similar to the middle school, just not as often. And then there will be routine individual advisor meetings. So once a month, they'll check in with their advisor, and they will, again, talk about their progress. What are things that they need additional support on? How can we continue to help as a system and coach and provide feedback? There will also be academic groups at the high school level. These will be blocks of time throughout the week around content areas, specific types of pieces. And so they may be meeting together again as whole groups, small groups, or individually. Sometimes it might be a student-led group where students are coming together around content to have almost like a study group type of thing. And then there will also be office hours at the high school level on a daily basis, just like with middle school and elementary. So now we're going to move into academic supports and curriculum. And so talking about some specifics at each level around that. So the first one is elementary. You know, it'll be the same class content of a literacy block, a math block, morning meeting. Probably the thing that is different, as I said before, is the specialist teachers, that there will be a core group of specialist teachers dedicated to 196 Online that will be working with students in an online environment and really being able to focus on learning in an online environment. There will also be access to similar supports as you would see in a brick and mortar. So at the elementary level, this would be things like our gifted and talented development services. It would also be our English language services and development. And then it would be special ed, reading recovery, math recovery. So those same supports that we have in the brick and mortar will also be available in 196 Online. At the middle school level, when it comes to elective courses, it's going to be similar to the in-person courses. Band and choir will be offered online, but students could also elect to take them in person with family transportation. And we do this currently for students that are being homeschooled at home and would like to come in for band or for choir. They are able to come in at that hour that band is going on for that they're assigned to, come in for that hour and then leave after that hour is over. So that is an option at the middle school level. There's also the opportunity, like I said earlier, to participate in co-curricular programs that are at the attendance area middle school. And then the same academic supports that are in middle school will also be available on 196 Online. At the high school level, we are going to have on-level and honors/AP courses in English, math, science, and social studies. There's going to be a variety of elective courses similar to the course offerings. So just as I said at middle school, the difference at high school is that specialized in-person elective courses available at the home high school, students might have to come in for those. So something like marching band, where that needs to be in person, a student might choose to come in for that class. Some career development classes are ones that need to be done in person. So a student might have most of their classes in 196 Online, but come in for that particular specialized elective. And that can be up to 3 electives each term. The other pieces are there's an opportunity to participate in co-curricular programs at the attendance area school. And then at the high school, they also have access to similar academic supports. The other thing that will be available with in 196 Online is layers of technical support. So there's a list here of different ways that we really want to support families as they are in an online environment from a technical standpoint. So there will be a dedicated technology support staff available to help with any questions, things like that. Very similar to the tech request help form we have, there will be staff dedicated to students that are part of the program. We're going to start the year with an orientation for staff and students and families to really get to know and learn about the systems that will be used in 196 Online so that you are able to access and navigate them and really set the stage for the year to make sure that that connection is there. Then throughout the year, we're also going to offer family workshops. These workshops will allow families to learn about how to best support each other in an online environment. So how can we as the school, as students and as families together really work to help students be successful in an online learning environment? So there will be a series of workshops throughout the year. We're also going to offer family office hours. So these are a time where a family can set up a 15-minute time with staff to really talk through some of maybe the hurdles or the things that they need support around. Almost like an office visit, but you don't really have to come visit physically at the office. It would be an office visit with people, similar to some of the virtual 15-minute scheduled appointments that have been happening right now to learn more about 196 Online. It would be a very similar experience, but around a more technical sense. And then we also have our parent and student resources websites. We'll continue to update these based on the needs of students and families, and make sure that you have the support you need as far as videos and kind of that on time, wanting that information at your fingertips. So we're going to move into the second half of our presentation right now. And when we think about an online learning experience, we want to think about some different executive functions that would be helpful in being successful in an online learning environment. So these next 5 slides are going to talk through that and give you some reflective questions to help you as you're considering 196 online as an option. So the first one is more elementary specific, and it's really that daily support from a family member. So we've found that for elementary students to have a successful experience, it really helps to have an adult at home that can talk through the schedule for the day, or maybe the night before, really, talking through when the different Zoom times are, what are the learning tasks for the next day, to really help set the stage for your child. And so what I have are some questions here. One is, do you have an adult that can check in with your child daily? So doing that daily check-in. How might the adult help your child access learning for the day? So really having a conversation as a family of what that might look like. And then the third question is, how comfortable is the adult with providing space when your child needs to work through problems on their own? So how do we, there's times where that productive struggle is really helpful for students, and how can we take a step back, let them really see the learning that comes from that productive struggle, but also be there to support and guide when needed as well. Another quality that's really helpful in an online learning environment is persistence. And this is being focused and disciplined and self-motivated to really stick with sometimes challenging work, to really have that practice of consistency and habits, and then focusing on the assignment or the task at hand. So, just some questions here. When a challenge comes, how does your child respond? Does your child establish a schedule and routine? And does your child seek out help when needed? So those are, again, these are reflective questions for you to think about, and how, where are you at, and would this be the best place for you and your family? The next one is time management skills. So this is managing time and working independently. So what are strategies your child uses to manage his or her schedule? Is your child able to stick to a routine schedule? Are you or your child able to get into the Zoom meetings that will be scheduled? Communication skills is another one. So seeking out when you have a question, that sort of thing, being comfortable with using the video conferencing software. So some questions to consider is your child comfortable emailing or Schoology messaging? Because it'll be Seesaw for K3, Schoology for 4-5, the teacher. So is your child comfortable with communicating to the teacher when they need something or have a question? Is your child comfortable with engaging with teachers and classmates in a video conference over Zoom? And then if a technical issue arrives, are you comfortable with contacting the technology help request to get additional support? The final one is really that at-home learning environment, and thinking about having that designated space for learning. So one is your child's learning space quiet without distractions? Thinking about the seating and the lighting of the space. And another one that we find is really important too is there space inside or outside of the house for your child to take breaks from the learning space to re-energize and recharge? So, learning is incredibly important, but there are times that we need to really practice balance and step away, be able to recharge and re-energize, and then come back. So now I'm going to have Emily share any questions, and myself and members of the leadership team can help respond to some of those frequently asked questions there.
Great, thanks, Jenny. So there is some clarification needed around 196 online and the pandemic related distance learning, which we know as 196 Digital Academy. Can you talk a little bit about how 196 online is more of a standalone virtual school and how it replaces the Digital Academy? And then what happens if the pandemic does tell us that we need to be in distance learning? What kind of the differences are there?
So great question. So, and leadership team, you can chime in at any time. So one of the things right now, our current 196 Digital Academy model is part of a governor's executive order. And so making that available. What's different for 196 online is it's a part of the Minnesota Department of Education's online learning options that districts can apply for and have available, not just during the pandemic, but beyond the pandemic. So that's what makes it different. It's standalone. It won't be connected to it won't be connected individually to each school. It will be its own core school, having those connections with extracurriculars and after school programs. Then the question around, so right now, and help me if I'm saying this, but the current plan right now for the fall is to be in person for learning unless there is a governor's executive order. The governor's executive order is for this school year only. So we wanted to have an online remote option for families because we didn't know what would happen for the executive order next fall. So we wanted to have something in place and available for families that wanted that option. Based on so right now what you are, as you're making a decision, the March 4th date is really for priority enrollment into 196 online. And then from there, after that, it would be a wait list if you sign up after March 4th. And then what we're going to do in the spring is we are going to do a commitment communication to all families that enroll. In that commitment communication, there will be more information around the program. It's going to happen close to the end of the school year. You'll have more information in regards to the pandemic. And then as a family, you can make a decision based on the information you have at that time, if you are going to move forward with your commitment to 196 online, or if you would like to go to your attendance area school for next year. After that, then what we're doing is if a family then wants to go back to their attendance area school, we're looking at different times of the year, like around the end of terms. You can make a request, and then based on that request will be considered, and it'll be looking at a lot of different factors like staffing, school building, capacity, things like that to determine when and if the student can go back into the brick and mortar school. So leadership team, is there anything that I missed on that one? Anything you'd like to add?
No, there's a lot of questions that tie into staffing, and all our staffing with all levels go with our board tables. So depending on our enrollment, and that's why we need this decision so fast, is we needed to determine how many staff we need to hire for this building. And that's bottom line is how many students are enrolled. So I know that was a question there, is like sizes of classes that'll all be determined by the board in our staffing ratios. In the elementary world, we try to keep our class sizes at 21.25 at K2 and 26.25 and 3.5. And it's a little different middle school and high school, but we do all have staffing ratios that we abide by.
All right. Yeah. Do you have another question, Emily?
Okay. Yeah. So I think the follow-up maybe to that is, I think just explaining a little bit more that in the event that, so our hope is that we can go back to school full-time in person, as typical as we do in a normal school year. But if the pandemic and health protocols determine that we still need to be in some sort of distance learning, this will be completely separate, and there will be a distance learning plan in place for students to do it. So some of the families are expressing their concern for the health and the safety of their students, but would like to return to in-person when possible. So if students who enroll in 196 online right now, can they leave at any point during the year, or can they enroll at any point during the year?
So just as I said, enrolling, so there's a couple layers to that. So it really, like Chad said, the March 4th date is really about staffing and space. And so if you enroll in 196 online, and then again, we'll do the spring where you will, at the end of the school year, where you can make commitments after, you'll have an opportunity to say, yes, we want to continue moving forward, or with 196 online, or we want to go to our attended school. So you'll have a second opportunity there at the end of the school year. After that, we really want to work with families that maybe want to make that change. What it will be is a consideration around staffing and space to determine when going back into the brick and mortar building. And so that is really, and that's really what it will be, is it will be considered by administration when those requests come. Really, we're looking at transition times of trimesters or ends of terms to really make it a natural return back into for that. So I know we're not, I hope that brings some clarity.
And if I could, Jen, I would share, this is Stacy again, I'm at Valley Middle School. So we have a magnet program at Valley Middle. So similar, we have students that apply to be a part of our program if they're not within our attendance area. We do hold a waiting list, which this program would hold a waiting list for students as well if they did not enroll during this priority period, but then they wanted to be put on the waiting list. We encourage you to think about 196 online just as you would any other school in the district, that we want to make decisions with you that are best for your child and accommodate those when they make the most sense, depending on what's happening, obviously, with our society, within our schools, and for your child. So know that each administrator in the district would always work to that end for you. But yes, we do need to have this first step to have families enroll so we can get adequate staff in place for this program to run.
Great. So the next question is revolving a little bit around magnet schools. There was some communication in our original announcement that this would require families who have been accepted into a magnet school to essentially give up that magnet spot. Why do families have to give up the magnet spot? And if I'm a magnet family right now and I say I'm interested in 196 online, do I still retain that commitment until I have to go through that commitment process? Or I'm sorry, do I still retain that magnet designation until I go through that commitment process?
So that is a very good question. And we're currently in conversations to relook at that right now. And so more information will be coming for sure once that has been determined. We'll put that on the website to make sure that we have the most up-to-date language around the magnets, but that did come up, and we are doing some reconsideration conversations around the giving up of the magnet spot for this year due to the pandemic. So once more information around that is available, we'll post that on the website.
Great. So if I'm a family that has opened enrolled into District 196, would 196 online be an option for me through my open enrolled school?
Yes, because you have gone through the open enrollment process, you have already gone through the becoming a member of the 196 learning community, being at a school. And so yes, you could be part of 196 Online.
Have start and end times been determined yet?
They have not been determined at this time. That, I mean, that will be part of that commitments communication. We will have more details around that. Right now, we don't have those details.
But I would share that this is not an evening program. That has come up. The start and end times would still honor co-curriculars, so that
Yes.
students that want to participate in any programming in-house in buildings, they can still do that, and our schedule will facilitate that to happen.
Great. So will specialists be included in the 120 minutes of Zoom, or is that in addition to? And do these specialists include language, for example, Spanish at the elementary level?
So the specialist areas have yet to be determined. So that more information will come on that later. But it is part of the 120 minutes. Yes.
And I think we kind of briefly touched on it a little bit, but what student teacher ratios are you expecting?
The same student teacher ratios as in our current programming at the elementary, middle, and high school. So it'll be aligned. We're going with the same staffing ratios.
Okay. So kind of going back to Magnet a little bit, we have quite a few Magnet families watching here. So when you say the determination of whether or not we retain a seat at the Magnet school, how are we trying to say this? Oh, they're trying to decide whether between do they go the Magnet route or do they do the 196 Online route? So will the determination of whether or not we retain a seat at the Magnet school until the commitment later this spring be made by March 4th?
My understanding is yes. Yes, that's
so. If
that's
you
my
enroll
current-
in, if you submit the enrollment information now, you are not foregoing any seat at your Magnet school right now until we go through the commitment process.
Well, that I would say we'll have more information around that, the answer to that question, before the 4th. That I can't give specifics on that yet. That right now it's in conversation.
So we'll know more information about Magnet schools and how those will play out prior to this March 4th deadline.
Yes, and we
Got
will
it.
post them on the website.
Perfect. As an open enrolled family in District 196, will my children stay enrolled to take electives at their current brick and mortar school when we open enroll this year, if we attend 196 Online?
If they're not available in 196 Online, so I'm assuming this is a high school situation. Okay, so yes, then whatever high school you're associated with in the open enrollment process, yes. Drew, am I accurate on that?
That is accurate.
Okay. Wanted to make sure.
Venturing, do we have until noon?
Yeah.
Okay. Venturing kind of back to the health and safety protocols a little bit. What if there's a student that is enrolled currently in in-person school, but has a medical need that exempts them from wearing a mask, but may not be equipped with the attributes to be successful in the 196 Online model? Do you know if there's kind of an option for how we can ensure that they're successful?
You know, Jen, I'll just jump in, because all of the wonderful slides that were put together on things that would be optimal for a student participating on the online program are things that we know they may come with, but they also are things that we absolutely are going to have to build skills around. So that will be an important part of all of our programming, whether it is elementary, middle, or high school, that the expectation is that they're going to build those skills, right? But we know that they may come to us with different levels of abilities in those areas. So I would say no student should be excluded because they don't currently exhibit the highest quality of those skills.
And one of the things that we have talked about in our visioning processes at the elementary, middle, and high is how, as a staff of 196 Online, can we really come together in different team conversations to really support the students that are part of the program. And so, you know, yeah, we would not exclude anyone. It's really about how can we work together to try to help.
Jenny, can I jump in for just 1 second?
Mm-hmm.
If it's due to a need that's supported by special education, we will be working with teams to have those meetings to talk about what needs can we meet in the online school and what really needs to have in-person support to be meeting that student's needs. So some of that will be handled on a real individualized basis.
Thank you.
That's a great segue. We've received a couple of questions related to special education. So how are children with IEPs going to be accommodated? Will there be special education teachers, and will they be getting everything that they need to make sure that they're successful in 196 Online?
I can take that. Do you want me to?
That would be great. So
Yeah.
Andrea, do you want to introduce yourself too?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Andrea Tormson. I'm a special education coordinator in District 196 and helping out with this team. So I think a lot of my answers might sound the same at this point, but just kind of touching on what other people have said, anyone can sign up for District 196 Online if that's the right fit for your family, is where you're at right now. For students in special education, most of us will have IEP meetings talking about what support may look like for your student. We are also going to staff 196 Online like a school. So looking at the enrollment numbers, seeing what teachers we need, what types of services we need, looking at speech, OT, psych support, all of those things that would support students in buildings. We will look at enrollment to base our decisions on for that. So part of it will be some things that we provide online. The other part is what does your student need to be successful? And we're not exactly sure what that looks like, and it's hard to give a blanket answer for special education, but in many situations we can have that conversation of what will work and figure it out as a team. So.
And Andrea, what does that do to an IEP that's currently in place?
Yeah, so it would be an IEP written for that setting. So some things might look slightly different. So sometimes students who need a lot of support in navigating the school environment, some of those things that are challenging for them or that they, take up a lot of support during the day or what we need to focus on, it might look different online. So that might change the minutes, which might change the setting. But that's really going to depend on each student's needs. So it will be a IB team discussion and reflecting those changes as it fits the new setting.
Mm-hmm. So we're getting a couple of questions too, kind of about what happens if the governor has extended his executive order into the 2021-22 school year. What are we going to be doing for distance learning or digital academy moving forward?
So as it's stated in the communication, this is this is replacing digital academy. So this would be the option if you were going to do an online remote learning option.
So in the event that distance learning is required, would everybody be enrolling into 196 Online, or would it be a different distance learning program?
We would first need to see what the governor's executive order is. But this, based on my understanding, as it's stated in the communication, this is replacing the current digital academy model.
Just scoping through some more of the questions.
Emily, I saw several questions related to elective classes.
Mm-hmm.
So if your student is a middle or a high school student and they are, they're already currently enrolled in elective classes for the next school year, our intention is to provide as many of those classes as possible, and that makes sense in the online environment. But as Jenny said, there are a few exceptions to that really don't make sense in an online environment. So once we have the enrollment of students, we will pull what all of their classes are to look at them and determine elective options that meet what they would like to take, what their interest areas are, whether it's Spanish or any other elective that we can offer online, and we will develop programming around that. For the ones that are not available to be offered online, families, we haven't determined what it'll look like yet, but there will be communication related to how they can access those classes in their building, their original building. Is that fair to say, Jen?
I believe so, Drew. I feel like that's been our similar conversation at high school.
I think he popped off.
Did he pop off? Yeah, I mean, that's my current understanding, yes.
Great. What do you recommend for a student that is unable to return to in-person learning until the pandemic is over, but fully intends and wants to return to in-person school at the appropriate time?
I have had this question many times come to, and it's always, for you and your family to make a decision, but know that, so just a couple, and I know I've said them already, but just reiterating on the points that the March 4th is really about priority enrollment into 196 online, for the 2021-22 school year. Then if you after that, you'll still have a form you can fill out if you're interested. That would put you on a waiting list if space is available. Then what we're going to do is anyone that enrolled at the end of the school year, we're going to do a commitment communication that will provide more details. We'll know more about the pandemic. We'll know more about the vaccines, things like that. And then you will have an opportunity to say, yes, we want to continue moving forward. No, we want to go back to our attendance area school, because we do realize that we're in a pandemic. During the summer and through the next school year, if at any time you want to start to have the conversation about returning back to school, you can make that request and then administration will consider it. And like Stacy was saying, it's really about making sure that we can continue to move forward with that and that we would work with you. So, so as far as advice, I think it's, do you want to do priority enrollment or do you want to be put on a wait list? And then, the idea of that request process and weighing on those to really determine which you want to do.
And I just want to make sure that we're making this clear. This is not an enrollment option under an executive order. Correct?
Correct.
So if a child is currently homeschooled, when will they have the opportunity to register?
So my understanding is that if they are in the 196 attendance area, they could complete the enrollment form right now. That's my understanding.
And Emily, I don't know if we said this, but for next year, it'll be open for all 196 residents. The following year, they're looking to open it up outside District 196. I don't know if we said that yet.
We haven't said that yet, but yeah, that is the plan, is to open it to any student in the state of Minnesota after next year.
And then does enrolling into 196 online immediately remove my child from enrollment into their attendance area school?
That I am not sure of. I would have to follow up on that one. I don't want to give inaccurate information. So I'm not sure how that's going to look between March 4th and the commitment communication. So I don't want to say officially because I'm not quite sure. My apologies on that.
How aggressive will we be in expanding the program to accommodate people on the wait list?
It's a very good question.
Yeah, I just like that the whole staffing piece, and I'm coming at it from an elementary principal perspective. So when we have kindergarten registration, at Highland, we've had a waiting list, and I still have to stick to the board tables with 21.25, 26.25 for my elementary. But for like kindergarten, I'm limited on space, but then I can't go much above the 21.25. So if I have 15 people on a waiting list and I have 4 sections, I can't have class sizes of 30 in kindergarten. And I can't have class sizes of 10 either, which teachers would love. But that's why, we're going to be watching numbers just all summer too. And by a certain time, because we have to, we dedicate ourselves to professional development, we take pride in that as our district. We need time to work with our teachers who are going to be in there. So yeah, at a certain time this summer, we'll have to figure out what that's going to look like.
And I would say at the secondary level, we have very unique challenges to add additional students, because remember, when your student enrolls in a secondary school, they're not enrolling to be instructed by primarily one teacher. That is a minimum of 7, 8 upwards teachers for any one student. So it makes it very difficult if we do not staff this appropriately for those interested in this priority period, and we have a huge increase after that. It would be very challenging to meet those needs. Not impossible, but very challenging. So that is why we're having this priority enrollment period, so that we can adequately staff it for those interested.
There's a couple of people a little bit nervous that if they sign up for 196 online, that there could be a possible chance that their student may not be able to get a spot in their brick and mortar school once the pandemic is over. Can you talk to that a little bit?
I think that nervousness we feel by many families. And it is a very difficult time recognizing that we are in pandemic, and no one has that crystal ball to know what it will look like. And we are restricted by class sizes, as Mr. Rayborn said, we have to honor that. So again, we want what's best for your child just like you do, but we have to work within those parameters. We want your child to return when it's appropriate to their in-person school, that whether it's a magnet school or their neighborhood school, we want that as much as you do, but we do have to work within those parameters. So when that, if and when that time comes, we won't be in pandemic forever, then you would submit that request to the administrator, and we would work with whoever the administrator is with the online school is going to work closely with all the in-person schools, and we're going to do our very best to make those changes happen. But again, we have to follow those guidelines.
There was one specific to a student with an IEP. So again, I think there's certain things that will be handled by the IEP team. Are you making progress given the service that you're getting? It's same conversation, just different setting. And I mean, we've seen this year, there's been some back and forth between online and in person, just given what the student's need is. And also this year, given parents comfort with the pandemic. So that, again, will be handled by the IEP team meeting for some of those decisions.
So let's start off with a little bit of clarification, Jenny, around the 196 online program and the pandemic related distance learning that we see now. Talk a little bit more about how it is different, how it replaces 196 online, and how this is just another learning option for families.
Yeah, so like I said at the beginning, 196 Online is replacing our current digital academy model for next year. So that model will no longer be available at the start of the school year next year. And so this would be the online learning option, and it's part of being an online learning provider as a school district.
We should say too, Jenny, this will be for district residents next year. The following year, we're looking to open it up outside the district. You know, some people asked if this could be a one-year program. No, we're looking at continuing that in the future.
And
Yep.
I would also add too that currently we are under a governor's order, which we entered the school year of being required to provide an in-person option. Sometimes it was hybrid, and a digital option, or we call it a digital academy. We are anticipating that we will start the year next year in Minnesota without a governor's order. Again, in a pandemic, that could change, okay? But the assumption right now, and all data is pointing that direction, that we would start the year, school district in Minnesota would start the year without that governor's order. So the default for next fall, this coming fall, would be an in-person return. And then we are choosing, in addition to that, to provide an online option for 196 families.
Great.
So can I go ahead? This is Madhuri Veena. I guess if we do register for Digital Academy for the 196 Online, can we opt out and go back to in-person when we feel safer? It's for our students.
Great. Yeah, great question. So I'm kind of moderating through the comments and pulling some questions out, but yeah, that was kind of the next segue, I think. So for the families that would like their child to attend school in a virtual learning environment for now, what options are available there?
Yep. So we understand that it is a pandemic and things are changing, often. And so we're very cognizant of that. So this March 4th is really for enrollment priority for the 2021-22 school year in 196 Online. If you complete the enrollment form after that, you'll be put on a waiting list for when space is available in 196 Online. If you do apply for enrollment up to March 4th, then what we will do is in the spring, close to the end of the year, we're going to come back with a commitment communication to all families. This will be an opportunity for you to see more details around 196 Online, and then also make a decision if you want to continue being part of 196 Online, or if you're going to choose to go to your attendance area school. And then after that, it's really if you would like to request to make a change, you can request to make a change. And then what we will do is administration will consider that. There are some things that they will need to look at is space and also staffing to make sure. But the goal is really to support and help families through different pieces. And I don't know if Chad or Drew or Steve want to stack on top of that.
Yeah, I know it came up at the session this morning too, but that's why there's such a tight timeline. It all starts with number of students that are enrolled. So we need to look at that to put together, a staff for 196 Online, and it starts with the board tables. Like in our elementary world, we're allocated 1 to 23.25 for K2 and 26.25 for 3.5 for our staffing ratio. And that'll be consistent with 196 Online and all the schools in the district. So we need this baseline to determine how we're moving forward, putting this program together.
I know there has been concerns about the timeline, and I totally understand that. The challenge for a district, and there's other districts in our similar place right now too, is that the staffing for 196 Online is interrelated for the staffing at all of our 32 buildings in the district. And so when we get a sense of how many families are interested in this option, it's going to help us staff the brick and mortar buildings, the other 32 buildings, in addition to 196 online. It kind of goes hand in hand. So there's a lot of budgeting and staffing decisions for both models, both the online, the 196 online, and in the schools. As Jenny pointed out, registering by, or not registering, enrolling by the end of the day here on just in 2 days on Wednesday ensures the priority consideration, ensures that spot. There'll be a waiting list afterwards. If families make a different decision in the meantime, you will have that confirmation window near the end of the school year where we firm up specific classes, for example, at the secondary level, and also confirm that registration. And then as Jenny mentioned at the end there, that if families make a choice, let's say after the start of the year, administrators will consider that, looking at available space and staffing. I know at the high school level, the trimester break is an example where they entertain switches. For instance, students that are at our school environmental studies right now have an opportunity at the end of the trimester to make a different choice. And so we're looking at that process as well. But this is out for us to gauge the size and scope of the program right now so we can plan quality and have sufficient staffing in both in the schools and in 196 online.
And just to clarify, you have until Thursday, March 4th.
Excuse me,
not
Thursday, I
Wednesday.
misspoke,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
that's okay. That's okay, but that one day is, we want to make
Yes,
sure that everybody
Thursday.
knows. Yep,
Thank you.
yep.
Great. Okay, so moving on, this is kind of a two-part question, but we'll start with the first one. So if a family has opened enrolled into District 196, would 196 online first be an option for them to pursue? And if so, does that mean they lose their spot at their open enrolled school if they choose 196 online?
Okay, so our current understanding and working with Minnesota Department of Education is that families that are currently enrolled in 196, and that includes people in our 196 attendance area and families who are currently open enrolled into our district, those two groups can enroll in 196 online. Okay, that's the first piece. The second piece is in relation to returning to a school if after a change or after the year is over or a mid-year transition to their school that they were formerly enrolled at. Okay, and so we have enrollment within the district where you have your attendance area school and you also have the ability to do an open enrollment within the district. So the most recently assigned school that the student was enrolled at is the school that a student would transition back to after being in the program.
So if my family lives outside of the district, I open enroll into, I'm going to pick on Chad and say Highland, but I decide to go to 196 online and then maybe switch mid-year, would I still be able to go back to Highland as an open enrolled family? Or would I go back to my attendance area
So
school?
our intent is that we respect the relationship and the connection to schools that people have been attached to, whether it be their home attendance area school or the school they're open enrolled at. So if we were able to make a transition happen, if we had the capacity and space and staffing, yes, they would go back to their, I'll say their school that they were enrolled at. Okay.
Yeah, but then I do think it depends on space of the building and building capacity. So, I gave an example this morning, with our staffing ratio for primary and intermediate, and I think I misspoke, it's 21.25, not 23.25. I try to keep classes right around that staffing ratio for primary and intermediate. So like in kindergarten, for example, I can't have a class of 35 for online 196 or brick and mortar. But then again, I can have a class of 10. So that's why there's a waiting list and you can add students to try to stay at that staffing ratio for elementary. So it's a trick. It depends on the size and the building capacity in all of our buildings, but then it depends on class size too.
Okay, and then kind of piggybacking off that, what does that do to my child's magnet enrollment? Do I give up my magnet spot? Am I able to get it back after the fact?
A great question. In fact, we're pulling together all of the magnet school principals tomorrow, along with our director of elementary education, to discuss that and refine that. And so we will have that updated information on the 196 online website as soon as it's available. That meeting is taking place tomorrow. We understand the tight timeline, which ends on Thursday. And so we are addressing that, but we want to make sure all 5 of our elementary magnet principals are involved in that conversation.
So if I don't enroll by March 4th, but decide that I want my children to be enrolled in 196 online, what will the probability be of getting off the wait list?
Great question. I'm not sure. Because this is the first time we've done this, so I'm struggling to give a definite.
Yeah, I think the pause there is legitimate. It's our first year, first time we've ever created a centralized online option for families. We want to make sure that we can staff it adequately and have a quality program. And so it's hard to make a prediction on the chances of coming on, or excuse me, off the waiting list, if I'm understanding that question correctly.
Yeah, I think exactly what you said. It all kind of depends on, you know, what we get for staffing and what the enrollment level is too. So, okay, this one's about curriculum. Some parents are wondering, will this curriculum be built in-house? Will it be from a company or an outside entity? What can students expect? And will these be 196 online only teachers?
Go ahead, Jenny.
Okay, so our goal is to utilize this summer for course design around the courses that will be available in 196 online. So teachers that are part of the program really developing courses based on our standards and our units that we currently have in the district. And then also thinking about relationship design in those courses. So how do we design it in a way that allows students to also develop relationships with their classmates and also relationships with their teacher at the same time that they're learning the course content. Like I said at the beginning, we want to make sure that we're meeting and exceeding the Minnesota state standards in all of those courses, but the goal is to develop those in-house.
And I think that's one of the unique hallmarks of our program. And every district, I shouldn't say every, there are several districts either have had an existing program or are developing it currently amidst the pandemic. Some districts use outside vendors, as was noted in the question, for the content and even for delivering the content. And one unique hallmark about our program is that we want to closely aligned to the curriculum and the staff in our traditional buildings, brick and mortar. And so the courses will be taught by our staff and the curriculum will be designed and delivered by our staff. And so that is one difference between our program, I think, and some other programs that may have already been in existence or being developed right now.
This one's an interesting one that's come up quite a bit. What will my high school seniors diploma say? Will it say 196 online? Will it say Eastview? Will it say Rosemount High School?
That's a great question. Minnesota Department of Education has informed us that 196 online will have its own, I'll call it a code, school code. Minnesota Department of Education, every district, every school has a code, every individual school. So this will have its own code. We have not, I don't have the information in terms of exactly what will be on the diploma. It will signify District 196, but I can't tell you what specifically it'll say in terms of the school, but it will be assigned a specific code in the eyes of Minnesota Department of Education and will be attached to our district.
I just want to return real quickly to kind of the perception of schools being safe or unsafe and kind of still trying to navigate, you know, the uncertainty of the pandemic. But what if the students don't enroll for 196 online? It's still unsafe to return to school in the fall. Is there an option to learn online until it is safe?
I can jump in again on that and I'll let others jump in as well. So if we get to next fall and it is deemed, let's say the governor or the Minnesota Department of Health deem that it's not safe for a full return, okay, then there would likely be a governor's order that requires districts to provide both options. I know best example I can give of this is Eden Prairie had recently developed an online program, okay, prior to the pandemic, within the last year, and rolled that out. And in addition to that, it was deemed unsafe to fully open in the fall if we were at a certain case count in the county. So Eden Prairie had both an existing online program and they had the governor's order, which was, let's say, hybrid and a digital option, okay, depending upon the age level in the county. And so they did provide both in Eden Prairie, and there were some similarities between the two experiences, even though one was driven by the district producing a online option, and the other one was driven by the governor's order. So we would follow the governor's order, in which case the students that we would assume now would be default in person. We would follow the governor's order and provide that to all of those students in line with the governor's order. All the while we have 196 online functioning as a school as well.
Thanks. Will there be any challenges in a schedule where perhaps a middle schooler takes a high school level course, like a language or a different specialty?
That's an interesting question. I saw that in the chat earlier. If the course is delivered via 196 online at the high school level and the student is a middle school student in 196 online, I think there's automatically flexibility, right? Because it's largely asynchronous with synchronous levels of support, or largely independent with support, virtual support. So in many ways, that flexibility could work if that, let's say, 8th grader is enrolled in that 9th grade course. If it's a course that is not offered in 196 online, okay, then we're looking at, I think, what Drew and others spoke to earlier about specialized electives, specialized courses at the high school level. We manage that on a case-by-case basis. I don't know, Drew, if you'd want to add to that.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I think where I go to first is that we do regularly have some of our middle school students in math and a world language, for example, who have come from magnet schools or accelerated programs working through the elementary and middle school, and through a process have already been on more of just an advanced track, and they would start their day at Rosemont High School, for example. They do this at our other high schools as well, but it would not be self-elected. There would be a process for appropriate placement to find the place where students would find the most success. So I think sometimes there are families that might think about accelerating to different levels, but we definitely would use our district design process in which to make those determinations.
The elementary level, yeah, we have subject advanced students, and we have grade advanced students. We have district policy for that. So is that a possibility? Like I said, we would look at what the design team and what district policy, but we have done that in the elementary level before.
Great. Just a quick clarification. I know we had touched on this a little bit earlier in the discussion, but so if a student is open enrolled into a middle school and they choose 196 online, could they return later that year or even later the next year if there's space available? Is that kind of what the thinking is along that?
Yes, I mean, so it would be a request process, and then it would be a consideration by the administration moving forward. So we can say, yes, the family can make a request, and then that will be considered by administration.
I think maybe I can jump in to add something from a high school perspective, in that a lot of times courses are different from one school to the next in terms of the scope and sequence, the exact calendar of the school year. And we're really asking families to carefully consider what we would hold true to be the best interest of the child, and that anytime there's a change in venue, it can be somewhat disruptive, and that we'd like to think of really the commitment for a year if possible, but we'd always work through to find the best interest of the child. So if it was determined that it would be best to move that student from an online to a school site or vice versa, because that was best for the child. We want to do that, work through a process, but it would not be necessarily as fluid as we've experienced this year, where there's been some mandates to change, because sometimes the courses are different. The teachers will certainly be different. The experience will be different, and that can sometimes have a negative effect in that child's longevity over the course of progress the entire year. So that's one of the careful considerations, whether to enroll or not to enroll, is really to think of that year-long commitment that would be best for the child.
Perfect. Just two more questions here. So I'm looking into 196 online as an option for my child so that they can train in their sport during the day. Right now, it looks like the kind of morning time is the best time. And that schoolwork kind of happens in the afternoon and the evening. Will this be a good option?
I think maybe I can start answering this. I just actually was on a phone call with a wonderful parent who has a student who is in that precise situation. Some of the things that they expressed in terms of a high school choice, because oftentimes it comes at these times in a student's life and development adolescence, that the student was wanting to take some upper level classes, that the student was also wanting to experience high school with friends, eating lunch, walking through the hallways, go to prom, go to things like that. But also wanted that flexibility because they might be gone for certain lengths of time. And really, I asked, kind of reflected back to that parent, what is the best interest of that child for the overall experience, and can that school help to meet that child's needs within that setting, without it being a disruptive experience? And they also asked that question, can they bounce in and out? And I also reflected back, that can be pretty disruptive as far as changing from online. Is not the same course as what would probably be experienced in the school, because that would be an asynchronous experience as opposed to a more regular period structure, rather weekly structure that would move through a regular school day. So really carefully consider holistically what the family is looking for. In our School of Environmental Studies, which is a wonderful school that's a magnet school for 11th and 12th graders inside the district, it is of a certain size where they can't offer all of the array of electives, like the full menu, if you will, that one of our other 4 full high schools are able to offer. So even though it's a wonderful experience, you have to know that you're buying in for that particular programming, which has pros and cons, has some pluses and minuses, where they don't have a business department at SES, but they have a wonderful art program. So if you're a student who is really passionate about business, that might not be the best choice. And likewise, in an online school, depending on how many students enroll, typically the public online school offerings are a little bit more limited because there aren't as many students enrolled and it is more limited choices. So they're buying into that opportunity to do asynchronous learning in an online format, as opposed to all of the experiences a student might experience at one of our traditional high schools. So that's an important decision to make for your child as well.
Great, thanks, Drew. So kind of segueing out here, let's talk a little bit about kind of next steps, the Thursday deadline, what happens after that. Is this deadline just a period to express strong interest, but not actually committing? Kind of what happens next here, Jenny?
Yeah, so the March 4th date is really for enrollment priority. So if you want priority to be enrolled in 196 online, you will want to complete that by March 4th. Then after March 4th, then it will be a waiting list situation if you choose to sign up. Like I said, we'll then go to commitment communication closer to the end of the school year, and then to families that have enrolled or did that enrollment priority, and then school will start in September. If you have additional questions, what I would say our next steps is to either email us at 196online@district196.org or call the number of 651-423-7826, and we'll do our best to respond to your questions as quickly as possible, knowing that Thursday is coming up quickly. And then you can watch for the website if you still have questions around that magnet piece. Like Steve had said, we're going to post that on the website once that determination is made. I don't know if there's things that anybody on the team would like to add.
No, like I said, Jenny said at the beginning, 196, we have lots of or opportunities and great professional development for teachers. And, you know, it's kind of like when people are going out looking at different schools, school tours, you need to find the right fit that works for you. And we're just excited to offer another option for District 196 families starting next year.
And I would add to that, yeah, I'm excited to offer another option and for people to reflect on. Elementary experience in some ways will be very similar to the Digital Academy model this year, which had devoted classroom teachers to that, but we're enhancing that. The secondary model this current year in the pandemic, our secondary teachers have been asked to support students both in school and online and sometimes simultaneously. And I think a hallmark again of this program next year is we'll have devoted 196 teachers that are devoted exclusively to supporting the students in 196 online and not trying to do both simultaneously. So that's an advantage of a district our size, having to consolidate and have a secondary program in 196 online. That's a district-wide program. So that just, again, another hallmark.
So I think with that, I want to thank everybody for attending today. Really glad to see so many people coming to find out more about 196 Online. And again, if you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to that phone number or that email address, and we'll do our best to get back to you. So thank you very much.